Welcome to a special Branching Out, Growing Together offshoot episode. These episodes take us beyond our usual format, whether it's a personal reflection, a unique story, or a deep dive with a guest outside our scheduled interviews. And now, here's your host, Melanie Jones.
Hi, and welcome back to another episode of Branching Out, Growing Together. I want to start by reading a quote, and it says, "Be scared, do it anyway, be underqualified, and get in the room anyway. Be messy, imperfect, and unsure, and show up anyway. Comfort is the enemy of growth. Get uncomfortable." I read that. I was thinking about the podcast and how when I started this a couple years ago, I thought every episode had to be absolutely perfect. I needed to memorize every single word. And as the podcast has grown and I've grown, I realize that's really not the case. It's more about sharing ideas in whatever format that evolves into. And I am being bold to do this podcast just as myself, sharing some ideas. I was inspired this week when I was driving a lot and I listened to a free Audible download by Michael Easter, who I believe was the past editor of Men's Health. And it was called Embrace Discomfort, Lean into Challenge to Improve Your Life. It was based somewhat on his book, Comfort Crisis, Embrace Discomfort to Reclaim Life, Happy, Healthy Self. The premise of it is sort of you do things to get yourself outside of your comfort zone. And as you do that, your comfort zone expands. And it's really, really important, I think, that more of us do that, to have the bravery to do something we haven't done before. That is the name of the podcast, Branching Out, Growing Together. And certainly in chestnut farming right now in America, it's taking some bravery, testing, experimenting, sharing ideas. It's absolutely brilliant. So on that note, we're going to start this new format today. I want to share some ideas around this topic called Land Legacy and the Future of Farming, because it's Small Business Week in the United States. And I want to talk about a subject I don't think we talk enough about, which is treating your chestnut orchard as a business, not just a hobby. Obviously, many people out there that it is a hobby, and that's fine. But for those of us that are trying to grow orchards for production, we really need to think of it strategically as a business. And if you're listening to this podcast, chances are you're either in that realm or you're helping someone or you're dreaming about it and planning next steps, which is fantastic. We need everybody. Maybe you've realized this isn't just farming, it's a strategy. It's a path forward to build something, whether that's revenue related or activity related or enjoyment. There's so many different angles and aspects of having chestnut orchards. So in this special episode, I'm pulling together some of the best advice I've heard over the past year from people like Joel Hubbard, CPA, a registered investment advisor, a friend of mine as well. And yes, he is a chestnut grower now too. He and his family have launched Georgia Chestnuts down in the Atlanta area. And also a couple of thoughts from Jeremy Kaufman from Propagate, who's helping farmers nationwide to bring agroforestry to life. We're going to talk about investing in land, using the right business structure, financing your orchard, and why chestnuts just might be one of the smartest small business moves a landowner could make right now. I say this all the time, but it really kind of is a ground floor opportunity. If we were to match Europe's consumption of chestnuts, we would need 200,000 acres plus of chestnuts in production. We have about 5 right now, just to show you the growth. And those numbers could be a little bit fluid, but to give you an idea of the growth opportunity. So let's start. A business rooted in land. Joel once told me that land is not just land, it's part of your investment portfolio, and pretty much an important one. And when he first told me that a long time ago, I had to kind of pause. Many of us think of land as it's very emotional. It's our family's future. It's where we go for recreation and peace and solitude. It's our connection to the earth. But Joel helped me see it differently. It's an investment that can balance out a portfolio and balance out the risk, especially during times when the markets are shaky, like early 2025. And he said, in my own life and my clients' portfolios, agricultural land has been a stabilizing force when stocks and bonds are underperforming. It's long-term, it's tangible, and when it's managed right, it can produce something real. That real thing for him is chestnuts. Joel and his family actually cut down in mid-rotation, means that the pine trees could grow longer for more money, but he cut them down to plant chestnuts and get them in the ground as quickly as possible. And that was after doing research and realizing that chestnuts are a stronger revenue potential producer per acre than pine trees in the long run. And of course, there's always factors that make a statement like that make sense, but it gives you the idea that it's a pretty exciting time to be in this industry. Second, Joel talked about creating an entity that protects you. So one of the most important things I learned early on was how to structure the business from the start. We met Joel and his team back when we had our first pine tree plantation in Georgia. And, he just helped us see like the structure of how you're setting this up and what you want to accomplish is worth putting a little effort in on the front end. And he says a lot of folks jump into land ownership with their heart in the right place. Obviously, it's exciting to buy a piece of land, but they don't have the business structure in place. And that can lead to higher taxes, more liability, and missed opportunities. So he recommends considering either an S Corp, sub S, or a limited liability corporation. And we agree, we have several of those in place, and it just gives you peace of mind that you're protecting. So he goes on to say these options give you tax flexibility or protection for your personal assets. And for anyone with family goals in mind, they also support this intergenerational transfer of land. I know here at EBB Farms, we sell a lot of trees, and we're working with more and more families that have land that's been in the family that they want to do something different, to get out of row crops and create something that's maybe even more sustainable and easier to farm than row crops. And chestnuts are a perfect substitute for that. Joel gets pretty personal in the podcast that we do together, talking about his own daughters and granddaughters and how he's getting them to have buy-in early on in the planting and the harvesting, planning what are the future orchards going to look like. So he says you got to get buy-in early. You don't want to build something just to have the next generation bulldoze it and offer it to developers. It's a tough point, really. I mean, I think a lot of us feel that same tug. Like, how do we make our kids and grandkids interested or caring about what we're doing right now? And Joel's perspective, and I agree, is to teach through participation. I was at the Kentucky Nut Growers Conference a couple weeks ago. I had the opportunity to speak, and I was just so delighted to see several families to bring their young children to this and sit through some presentations and all, but there was a lot of hands-on activities, and you could just see them delighted about it. I'm going to switch subjects here now to agroforestry as a business model. This is another layer here. If you're not familiar with the term, it simply means integrating trees into existing traditional farmland, whether that's pasture, hay, fields, or even row crops. I read the other day that the chestnut could replace corn as a food substance in the world, and how much better that would be for a planet to have trees instead of row crops and all that it takes to manipulate the soil and pesticides and everything to produce corn. So Jeremy Kaufman of Propagate has been leading this charge for farmers. And he said, when we work with farmers, we start with a simple question: how can this make you more money? Because at the end of the day, the trees have to pay for themselves, and they're not necessarily super inexpensive. Jeremy's team uses a software tool called Overyield to model the revenue scenarios for the farmers to get them to consider this new approach. And it looks at everything from revenue from fresh nut sales to the ecosystem benefits like soil health and reduced runoff. He also shared that chestnuts are Propagate's most popular crop right now. And it's not by accident. Jeremy says chestnuts hit the sweet spot. They're not as labor intensive as fruit trees, and they mature faster than timber. They're right in that Goldilocks zone. And here's something that is probably of interest. Jeremy estimates it costs between $2,000 to $5,000 per acre to establish a chestnut system, depending on how much you do yourself, whether you own the land already. There's some factors there. One of the things that Propagate's been working on the last couple of years is funding for farmers, whether it's through the USDA or climate smart programs, to reduce some of those upfront costs. I know there's a lot of conversation right now about funding being halted, grants being canceled, and so forth, but it's something that Propagate's really investigating. So they're already planting thousands of acres of chestnut trees in Kentucky, Tennessee, and New York, and they are offering support whether you want to lease your land or own your own system. Next topic is thinking generationally. Both Joel and Jeremy hit on something that I've been feeling too, and that is that chestnuts are a long-term endeavor, and it makes them a legacy decision, not just a line item. Not like a tomato plant, like here's your tomatoes, see you next season. This is a process that takes a long time and a lot of work, and there's a lot of good things that can happen, and there's challenges as well. And Joel told me this story. He said, one day I took my grandkids out, loaded them in the RTV, drove them all around our brand new orchards, teaching them as we're going along, what is this, what is that, what's the difference between what this and that, and really letting them know that this is a long-term thing that's going to be part of your life, and I want you to love it as much as I do. And Jeremy said, trees make us think long-term, right? They do. They force conversations about estate planning, succession, and what we really want to leave behind in a balanced portfolio, let's say. I want to stop here and talk just a little bit about some revenue numbers. These are just my ideas based on my research, but I think they're pretty conservative. Let's just say that you have 1 acre that's 10 years old and you've planted 75 trees in that acre. We're actually planting 108 right now, and we'll have to thin them. Let's just use 75. So in about 10 years, you should receive 10 pounds per tree. And let's say that you're selling them at a very low cost, $4 a pound, which would be a wholesale number. In that 10th year, that 1 acre should produce about $3,000 of revenue. Again, using very conservative numbers. So let's take that 1 acre and let's just go out and say that you multiplied that by, let's say, 20 acres. In 5 years, you should be seeing revenue of around $30,000 a year. And by year 15, $200,000. And even by 25 years, $400,000 of revenue from those acres. And so it's a ground floor opportunity to do something different in the United States. What's going to make this successful is if we can continue to educate consumers about this product that are eaten worldwide, and we continue to grow more and more chestnuts. Right now, I think it's 80% of the world's chestnut supply come from China, and we import so much right now, and we're really working hard to change that. And so I just wanted to throw those numbers out. That doesn't include the cost. It's just what you could potentially earn, but then we see a lot of people charging $15 a pound, not $4. So the numbers are pretty attractive. Okay, let's kind of wrap this up with practical tips for new growers. If you're listening to this and wondering where to begin, here are some takeaways from these interviews. Structure your land properly. Talk to your CPA or attorney about whether an LLC or an S Corp makes more sense for your farm. In one of the podcasts, we talk about, if you're looking for a CPA, or let's just say that, for land, you might want to find a CPA that has experience with land. If you're looking to buy land, you might want to work with a realtor that specializes in selling land. There's a lot of parts and pieces to it. Second is start with the end in mind. Whether you're selling direct to the consumer or planning wholesale for chestnuts or building those relationships early is super important. Use the tools available. Propagate is one that I mentioned. Your state agriculture department is another. United Chestnuts is another resource. As we speak here, United Chestnuts, is we're building an on-demand, subscription-based e-commerce and branding platform that will help someone that maybe you have 20 acres and you've got some product to sell, but that's not what you do. You're not into digital marketing and strategy. We're offering this solution that will help sell. It's in the works right now. Check back like July 2025, and we're going to unveil it all, but it's really pretty exciting. The third one is to educate the next generation, as we've talked about. Bring your kids, grandkids into the process. Let them see the meaning behind the mission. Make sure they have gloves if they're going to pick them up off the ground, and start teaching them how to cook with them and all that good stuff. Track your costs and reinvest wisely. Joel reminded us on one podcast, don't buy something just for the tax write-off. Only spend the money if it makes you more efficient or more profitable. The tax write-offs are nice, but you want to be strategic about it. So in closing this Small Business Week, Small Business Week is really about celebrating the risk takers, the builders, the dreamers. And I believe that includes you, the growers, turning quiet acres into generational businesses. And whether you're just starting out with a few trees or you're planting your next 20 acres, you're on to something bigger and you're part of a community. So if you'd like more help thinking through structure, funding, land planning, visit unitedchestnuts.com or reach out to partners like Propagate and Executive Money Managers, we're here to help you grow, and we're growing together. We're doing something really unique in the United States and bringing this industry back. As we like to say, chestnuts are coming back. We're building the system to support them. So keep dreaming, planning, and growing, and being brave. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Thanks for joining us for this offshoot episode of Branching Out, Growing Together. If you enjoyed this, be sure to check out our regular episodes where we continue to explore growth, connection, and the chestnut industry. And don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe for more. Until next time, keep growing.